of transparency under the Paris Agreement, as well as BTR requirements. Should one of these webinars spark your interest and you missed it, you can access the recordings on our PATPA website or on our YouTube channel. The name of today's session is How to Transparency. Let's get this started. It's based on the knowledge products developed by PATPA and the FAO. And the knowledge product is called the BTR Roadmap Guidance and Tool. And you can find a link to the tool either here in the chat or on our website. And now to the event of today. So after some welcoming remarks by the head of PATPA, Oscar Sasso Fuertes, Christina Rotia from the Öko-Institut will reintroduce the BTR Roadmap Guidance and Tool to us. Christina works at the Öko-Institut since 2019, and before that she worked for the Ministry of Environment of Peru and for the Ministry of Environment in Germany. Actively participating in the UNFCCC process until 2018. And she's a biologist by training. With us is also Lorenz Moosmann, also from the Öko-Institut. He's an expert for greenhouse gas inventories and projections. And he's participated in the UNFCCC negotiations in the area of transparency since 2017. He's an environmental scientist by training and will be available for questions later during the discussion. And after they will provide a thematic input to us, I'm also particularly delighted to welcome Cheryl Jeffers, who is the Interim Executive Director of the Caribbean Cooperative MRV Hub with us, and Berioska Quispe Estrada, who is the Director of the Greenhouse Gas Mitigation at the General Directorate of Climate Change of the Peruvian Ministry of the Environment. Thank you very much for being here with us today. So Berioska Quispe is a biologist from the Universidad Nacional San Antonio Abad de Cusco. She is holding a Master of Science in Ecotourism from the Universidad Nacional Agraria La Molina, and she has a second major in Science and Management of Climate Change from the University of Zurich and a double diploma in Integration of Climate Change Adaptation in Planning and the Corporate Social Responsibility. Berioska has 17 years of experience in project management, climate change compensation mechanisms for ecosystem services, sustainable development, conservation, environmental services, climate change, and REDD+. She is currently the director of the greenhouse gas mitigation at the ministry. Some words to Cheryl, who is the interim director at MRV Hub. She leads the MRV Hub management team and execution of its technical activities, including facilitating ways to improve the technical capacity of the regional experts in the design and implementation of the national MRV system and their transitions to reporting under the enhanced transparency framework. She has been actively engaged in the climate change negotiations as well as the implementation of climate change-related projects and programs for over 10 years. And the MRV Hub seeks to strengthen climate change transparency, measurement and reporting and verification systems in the region. Both of them will share their experiences with us using the BTR Roadmap Guidance and Tool later during the session. And yes, thank you again already for being here. After the panel, we will have time for a Q&A session where you can, also the audience, you can direct your questions towards the panelists as well as share your own challenges or plans for submitting a BTR in time. And you can also throughout the whole session already write your questions in the chat. And then we will conclude today's session with some key takeaway messages from today, again by Oscar. And now with further ado, I would like to give the word to the head of PATPA, to Oscar Sasso Fuertes, to share some welcoming remarks with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim, and also a warm welcome from me to everyone to this third chapter of our webinar series. It's BTR time, the importance of BTRs in 2024, which is organized by the Partnership in the, on Transparency in the Paris Agreement, short PATPA. Tim has already introduced me. I'm the head of the Secretariat of the Secretary of the PATPA. And the PATPA Secretariat is hosted by GSZ within the frame of the support project for the implementation of the Paris Agreement, short SPA. We are an IKI-funded project, and as such, being part of the SPA project, PATPA is commissioned by the Federal Foreign Office of Germany. As you know, dear participants, the year 2024 is marked by the entry into force of the Enhanced Transparency Framework, ETF, under the Paris Agreement, and also by the submission deadline by the end of this year, by the 31st of December of this year, for the first biennial transparency reports, the BTRs. The ETF, the Enhanced Transparency Framework, foresees for the first time a common set of rules and standards for both developed and developing countries alike. In this context, PATPA has published several knowledge products on transparency. They are all available in several languages with the aim of preparing all countries for the requirements under the ETF for the preparation of biennial transparency reports. This webinar series consisted of 3 virtual events where technical input has been given, space for experience sharing has been provided, and PATPA knowledge products have been presented. Today's event marks the end of our webinar series, and I would like to extend my gratitude to those of you who are with us today or have been with us in the previous sessions. While the first event provided insights into the importance of transparency under the Paris Agreement and its interlinkages with other important processes such as the NDC cycle and the global stocktake, the second event yesterday focused on the mandatory requirements under the Enhanced Transparency Framework, namely the greenhouse gas inventories and the information needed to track progress on NDC implementation and achievement. Today, under this third webinar, we will present the biennial transparency report roadmap guidance and tool, and share some country experiences with you. This tool was jointly developed by us at the PATPA Secretariat and the FAO, with the aim to guide countries in planning the preparation process of their first biennial transparency reports, as well as drafting a tailor-made roadmap for its implementation. The tool is also available in several languages and ready for download at our PATPA website. I'm particularly looking forward to listening to the contribution of our colleagues from Peru and the Caribbean to share their experiences with this BTR roadmap guidance tool today. And before I hand over back to Tim, I would like to give some short background information on the Partnership on Transparency in the Paris Agreement. PATPA, the partnership was launched in 2010, already 14 years ago, by South Africa, South Korea, and Germany at the Petersburg Climate Dialogue. The aim was and is to promote ambitious climate action through political dialogue and the exchange among practitioners. Since then, since 2010, PATPA continues to support practical exchange between developing and industrialized nations and provides an informal forum for discussion on climate negotiation issues with a focus on transparency. Since its inception, PATPA has organized numerous regional workshops in its 5 regional groups clusters, namely Asia, Anglophone Africa, Francophone cluster, Latin America and the Caribbean, and the Lusophone cluster. PATPA is also active at the global level, and this year we will be hosting a global BTR dialogue as well as a partnership meeting on the margins of the SPs in Bonn. Further, PATPA also offers short-term bilateral support under the SPA Project's Climate Help Desk. And with this, I like to finish by saying that I'm very happy to welcome so many participants today. I see almost 50 persons already online, and I wish everyone here an insightful session and a lively discussion. Over to you, Tim.
Thank you very much, Oscar, for these welcoming remarks. In the interest of time, I would like to directly hand over to Christina, who will reintroduce us to the BTR roadmap tool and guidance. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Screen sharing challenges, but I will manage. Just one second. Yes. Okay. Yes, as announced, I will give a short introduction into the Biennial Transparency Report Guidance and Roadmap tool. I will also make a little practical demonstration, but not too much in detail. So if you're interested in the tool, I suggest you download it, and the link will be posted. Well, Oscar already said this, but this tool was developed in a collaborative effort between FIO and PATPA. It is based on their experience in other MRV and transparency-related projects, and it supports countries in planning the preparation of the first biennial transparency report. So this tool is already in the world for a longer time, because preparation for BTR has ideally already started in countries. Yes, so why was this tool created? In what way is it supposed to help countries? It gives an orientation and the time that is required for BTR implementation or BTR preparation. And it supports, it has a step-by-step approach. So it supports the building of transparency systems that are robust throughout times with this step-by-step approach. And with this, it aims to ensure a smooth transition between preparation of biennial update reports to biennial transparency reports. So the transition from the reporting system under the convention to the reporting under the Paris Agreement. Below in the screen, you see the setup of the home menu when you open the tool. So I wanted to highlight that you will enter the tool, but you also find a glossary and many additional resources related to transparency, a how to use section, and additional information. So how does the tool work? It is an Excel-based tool, very easy to install. Nevertheless, I recommend not having any other Excel applications open when you open the tool. It is constructed around 6 main steps, which you see here on the screen. So setting the scene, taking stock, planning, the implementation per se, so the time it takes you to prepare the BTR, then the crucial step of preparing for the technical expert review, and step 6, which is improvement over time. And as you see, it is a circle because the process of preparing a BTR and of improving transparency over time is iterative. And the tool gives an orientation on how to plan for this iterative process. Yeah, and the approach taken by the tool to establish this supporting time planning is asking questions that then are responded by the expert. And the final output is a country-specific roadmap. So this is the main tool menu. And these is how the questions look like. But since this is in the abstract, I will now switch to the tool. And I will draw it up. So this is the welcome screen. I just opened the Excel file I have installed on my computer. This is what I get. And then I click start. Come on. And here we are. Yes, you always get some background information. Here, of course, when BTRs need to be presented. This is the main homepage I showed you. And now to get to this next screen I showed you with the 6th step, what one does is clicking on the tool menu. So the setting the scene steps, you see below each step, there are some sub-items. In setting the scene, what the questions address are the enabling conditions that are needed to prepare the BTR. So political buy-in, of course, supports the teams preparing the BTR in doing their work. It might unlock resources. The next step is related to the coordination team. So do we have the people available to coordinate work, to carry out work? And then I will jump to this one because this one is interesting. And this is what I was showing you. So this question asks whether information that is not under a shall requirement, so not explicitly mandatory, will be reported. And here, this discussion needs to, of course, take place within the BTR coordination team. It might also be a political decision. So before answering this, some discussions are needed, but then you can make your choice, yes, no, and read the resources that are there, of course, and then if the step is completed, one clicks completed and moves on. And as you see, because I clicked no, I'm not going to be reporting adaptation, the tool automatically disabled the adaptation questions here. Yeah. Another example we could do is, okay, so the taking stock step, it looks into what is available in the country already for preparing this very, very relevant chapter of the BTR. And you can see the questions here. So they ask, have you compiled a recent national greenhouse gas inventory? This question builds on the notion that we are not starting from scratch, or many countries are not starting from scratch, but they have previous experience to build on. So if there is previous experience, one clicks yes, and so on. Again, explanatory notes below, and one then completes this step. Yes, this is what I wanted to show you in terms of a practical demonstration, some specific questions. You see the other steps there: planning, ask for human resources, then capacity building needs. Capacity building needs have also a forward-looking component. Now you want to build building capacity over time. And now to the specific output of the tool, which is the roadmap. And for this, I will switch to PowerPoint again. But previously, I want to briefly show you how to close the tool correctly, which is not closing Excel, but clicking on this button. And you do not see it, but it popped up for me. Again, the question is asked, am I really sure? Yes, this time I'm really sure. I want to close it. So how do the country-specific roadmaps look like, and what is important to consider? This is an example. On the left, you see the different chapters or steps, contents of the BTR. Depending in the first step, when you set the scene, what was chosen, these appear or they do not appear. And as you can see here, this is a roadmap that takes a lot of time, a lot of time, like 5 years for preparing a BTR. And this is why we have clearly signaled this is a worst case scenario, because it assumes that the country will, in its first BTR, report everything that is possible to report, and it's one person doing it, all on their own. And yeah, so worst case scenario, no parallel processes, everything is done one after the other because it's just one person, and flexibility of leaving maybe some parts, some chapters out is not used. Here, the country could be a little bit faster. It's not until 2028 anymore because there are more people engaged in the process. So how many people you have available for preparing your BTR is an information you can input into the tool, and that directly influences the calculation of the required time that is then put into the roadmap. But here again, the country has not chosen to apply flexibility. So they have chosen that they will present the red annex, they will present projections, they will present the adaptation chapter, and everything will be ready, unfortunately, not in time. Here's another example where a country has more people available and has made maybe some honest choices, asking themselves, can we do it, can we not, and is applying flexibility. And then parallel processes and flexibility, of course, shortens the time required for preparing the BTR. Yes, so this as a very, very quick introduction and overview to the roadmap tool. And we are available to answer questions.
Thank you very much for these insights and for the brief overview of the BTR roadmap tool and guidance. And now to complement these insights, these rather theoretic insights with some practice, I would like to welcome again our two guests today, Cheryl Jeffers, the Interim Director of the MRV Hub from the Caribbean, and Berioska Quispe, the Director of the Greenhouse Gas Mitigation at the General Directorate of Climate Change of the Peruvian Ministry. We have prepared 6 questions for you that we would like to share with you. And then afterwards, we would like to give the floor to the audience so they can also share their questions or comments, and we can make the session a bit more interactive. So if this is okay with you, I will start with the first question and then maybe ask Cheryl to start with the first answer, and we can just switch. So yeah, it's not always the same person starting. So our first question would be, what was your goal in using the tool and what did you want to achieve? Cheryl, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tim. And thanks to the PATPA team, the Secretariat and its technical officers for the opportunity for the Caribbean MRV Hub, known as the MRV Hub for most, to participate in this critical, important exercise. I must say that the first time the English-speaking Caribbean was exposed to this particular tool would have taken place last year in April in conjunction with our annual meeting. So I want to also use this opportunity to place on record our sincere gratitude and thanks to the PATPA team who would have done hands-on training for 2 days. I must say intense training, and but it was quite useful in actually accessing the tool and seeing the flexibilities and opportunities that were presented. It was quite timely for us because this was one of our first annual meetings that we actually had representatives from the 12 English-speaking Caribbean countries. And we do recognize that all of the countries are members and parties of the Paris Agreement, and it is a requirement to submit our BRs in the first instance and also to exercise the necessary flexibility for the BTR. So based on the mandates of the MRV Hub to provide the technical guidance and assistance, we were quite pleased when PATPA reached out to us, basically providing that technical support to provide and open up that opportunity for the member states to get an exposure to the different types of elements. And I was particularly pleased by the reminders from Christina, basically highlighting the detailed and information, because one of the things we recognized from the training was that there were many members who were there who did not have as much information and detailed before that particular training. So I thought that it was quite useful for that level of exposure. And so we definitely look forward to a second round of training, recognizing that most countries have already expressed an interest in submitting BTRs, maybe not by 2024, but in the next round of reports and stuff like that. So just want to say thanks, but for us, it was quite an eye-opener, especially for the MRV member countries. Thank you.
Berioska, are you still there? Because your picture is frozen, I think.
Hello, I'm here.
Perfect. Okay. Then over to you. What was your goal in using the tool and what did you want to achieve with it in Peru?
First of all, I want to thank you, all of you, and mainly for PATPA team for providing us with the tool. For us in Peru, we are pleased to share our experience using the tool to streamline the planning process for our first biennial transparency report. As many countries face in overall regions, but most in Latin America, preparing for our first biennial climate reports present a unique challenge. Ensuring high quality data while simultaneously pushing forward with ambitious climate action is really challenging. This tool proved invaluable in helping us identify key priorities and information sources. This allows us to allocate resources in an efficient manner. As a result, we were able to focus on several critical areas. One, strengthen our national inventory process and reporting. This ensures the accuracy and transparency for our greenhouse gas emission data. Monitoring the mitigation results of our climate policies. By tracking effectiveness, we can refine our strategies for achieving ambitious climate goals. And at last but not least, improving support tracking. This allows us to better understand how can we utilize the resources available to us in our climate action. We believe this tool has the potential to benefit other countries as they navigate the BTR process. For many of us, it's the first time trying to do the exercise, and by streamline planning and focusing resources on key priorities, we can all contribute to more effective climate action on a global scale. Thank you.
Thank you very much to both of you for this elaborate answers. Our second question, but I think both of you touched upon it already, would be how useful was the planning exercise and the roadmap generated for BTR planning in the country, and how was the roadmap exactly used? So which concrete measures did its usage result in? Do you have some further comments on this point? Maybe the Semberi Oscar can start.
I can start.
Also
Yes,
fine.
sure. Yes, no problem. In terms of the usefulness, what we recognized during that particular training was that following in on the presentation that was just done by Christina, we recognized that the members who were there saw the value in engaging with other line ministries who were not at the actual training session. And so what we recognized was happening, they started WhatsApping or communicating with their respective ministries because they didn't recognize that they did not have all of the information. So one of the things I would say in terms of the usefulness of the tool, it encourages and enhancing collaboration and synergies across line ministries, because it is no one ministry that can actually perform or execute the role and the responsibilities. And it is an efficient way, in my opinion, of encouraging and facilitating collaboration across the ministries to ensure that the report that is submitted from the respective countries is as comprehensive and inclusive as possible. So that was one of the usefulness I saw in terms of the planning exercise. And I also must say that the actual picture that was generated, because it was a hands-on practical exercise, and they were able to look at it in that pictorial form to see exactly where they're at and what other areas or gaps is required, and to then use that as a benchmark to then go back to the respective countries to have that level of engagement to get that additional information. As small as we are, as small and developing states, sometimes things may take place in respective departments that one may not aware of, but because of the questions in terms of how the tool is actually designed, it now forces them to go back to find out where's that information to ensure that the reports that are submitted are as comprehensive as possible. Thanks.
Is Berioska still with us? No, I think she's...
I come back. Sorry, but
okay.
maybe I put the camera in off. It's better for the signal. Sorry, guys.
No problem. We're just talking with Cheryl about how useful the planning exercise was at the end of the day, and how it was exactly used and which concrete measures resulted in. Do you want to add something on this? I think you both touched on your previous answer already upon it. But if you have some further comments, you're welcome to share them.
Okay, thank you. For us, the planning exercise and the resulting roadmap proved to be highly valuable tools for our biennial transparency report. I can summarize the benefit in three issues. First one, comprehensive overview and prioritization. The exercise provide a oh sorry
We can hear you.
oh thank you. The exercise provide a thorough understanding of all the elements required for a successful BTR, and that enable us to prioritize tasks effectively for the current reporting cycle. Second, continuous improvement. The exercise also help us identify areas where we could improve in future BTR submissions. This foresight allows us to make strategic adjustments and enhance the quality and comprehensiveness of our subsequent reports. And third, we can also prioritize our GEF project development. The timelines of the roadmap was crucial, and we think it arrived just in time to be used as key input for defining the content of the project. And the project will provide the essential support for crafting both our first and second biennial transparency report. In a sense, the planning exercise and the roadmap serve as a comprehensive guide, equipping us to prioritize the task, identify areas for improvement, and leverage support for elaborating robust BTR report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now to follow up on this, because this all sounds very positive. I've heard things that helped you in the prioritization, that it was allowed you for a strategic adjustment. It was an eye opener, that it served for alignment with other ministries. So this sounds all very positive. So now my next question would be for you: have you really achieved all your goals that you had with the BTR tool? And if not, what are the weaknesses of the tool? So what didn't support you in? Maybe again, Cheryl, you can start again.
Yes, thanks for that, Tim. I would say it would be a bit too early to confirm that the tool has been 100% successful. What I can say is that based on the information that was presented to the member countries at that training session, it was an eye-opener for them to go back to the respective tables, because I can speak specifically of one particular country who was in that process of preparing the implementation process of the BTR, and based on the information that was presented from this particular tool, they thought that, maybe I need to go back to the drawing table and perhaps consider beginning the implementation of the BTR versus the BTR based on the information that was presented. And I said, in terms of one of the strengths, the step-by-step process, even though there may be flexibilities at SIDS, the information that is embedded with this step-by-step process gives them a very good idea of what could be considered, how much information, if this is available, because I must say that irrespective of the fact that SIDS may have that level of flexibility in terms of what can be provided, typically, and I guess it's culturally for SIDS, we will do everything that we can as SIDS to ensure that we submit a comprehensive report, including those areas that may have some flexibility. And I think that tool highlighting even those flexible elements, because it had that step-by-step process, it gave them that mindset in terms of, it is flexible, but it's actually possible, doable, even in that first reporting cycle. So I would say that is one of the greatest strengths of the tool. In terms of weakness, one of the things I recognized was during the hands-on session, there was a challenge in terms of where was the button for closing or not closing. And I'm not sure if that can be, because it has been a challenge in terms of, it was very difficult to maneuver exactly where you can save or close So that is one of the areas that for consideration if there can be some sort of improvement. So it's very clear to identify where that button is. But outside of that, I don't see any other immediate issues with the tool, but it is a really a good tool that one can use in terms of providing that support to prepare the BTR processes. Thanks.
Over to you, Berioska. Which challenges or weaknesses have you identified?
Thank you again. In addition of what Cheryl mentioned, for us, the planning tool for the BTR development has proved to be a valuable asset offering several key strengths. It's user-friendly. The tools, the interface make it accessible to a wide range of users, regardless of their technical expertise. This is crucial as BTR planning often involves individuals from various departments and backgrounds. For example, you also need administrators. The second is a rapid roadmap generation. The ability to generate a comprehensive roadmap quickly is a significant advantage and allows countries to gain a swift understanding of the BTR process and prioritize tasks effectively. However, as always, there are room for improvement. I think a potential weakness we are identified is a limited deep for detailed planning. While the general roadmap is helpful, the tool could benefit from offering more in-depth guidance on specific aspects of the BTR reporting. This will be particularly valuable for countries seeking a more granular approach to their BTR development. For that, by incorporating more detailed planning functionalities for activities and additional resource and capacity building, the tool could further enhance its effectiveness for countries with diverse needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we are taking note of all your comments also for the future. And then my last question from my side for you afterwards, I will follow some from the audience, which are already in the chat, I think, would be where does your country or region currently stand in terms of BTR planning and compiling, and what are the biggest challenges that you foresee for the next month? Thank you.
Okay, I can speak for St. Kitts and Nevis, since this is where I reside. For St. Kitts and Nevis, we are actually in the process of finalizing the project implementation plan, which is a PIP, to begin that particular process. So based on discussions with the ministry, perhaps within the second quarter or the beginning of the third quarter, that BTR process will actually commence. In terms of going back to the BUR processes, most of the Caribbean countries will have already submitted the BUR and are looking at the processes that will be required to make that final determination of the preparation of the BTR processes. In terms of the challenges, similarly to the preparation of the national communications and even that first BUR, having that the data issues, of course, continues to be a challenge, not just for states, but general developing countries, but also the relevant technical expertise that may be required to provide that support. And this is where the MRV Hub would be in a position to provide that support, especially for the English-speaking Caribbean countries. But I must say that in terms of next steps, we've already begun that discussion to do a second round of training using this particular tool to resensitize the relevant focal points as it relates to this particular exercise. It is no stranger, no new news that for most of the small and developing states, we have sometimes human capital constraints in terms of one officer or two officers may be required to do 5 and 6 and 7 levels of reporting. And this is ultimately the premise under which the MRV Hub has been positioned to lend that regional technical support in ensuring that the countries, in as much as they're in position to do so, can improve and update and submit their reportings in a timely manner. But I'm thinking that in terms of planning, compiling, and the challenges that are resonated around that, a lot of it has to do with challenges with the human capital in the respective countries and sometimes even on that regional stage. But we just want to just plug here that we are forever, you know, indebted and supportive and appreciative of the work being exposed to the particular tool, and we definitely will be coming back to PATPA to have a second round of training to re-emphasize and highlight the importance, because from that first session, it was really an eye-opener for the English-speaking Caribbean countries.
Over to you, Bianca.
Thank you again. Our country is currently in a dynamic phases. Right now, we are focusing on a strategy approach that view this year. We try to submit our national communication. We hope to do in July, and we are still planning to deliver the first BTR in December. But as a combined transition process, this allows us to leverage the knowledge gained from the national communication to strengthen and improve the quality of our BTR. However, we recognize significant challenge in our BTR development. I think the most countries face monitoring mitigation outcome for the very first time. We are actively working to improve our systems for monitoring mitigation measures. This is crucial for consistently and periodically reporting of the effectiveness of our climate mitigation efforts. And the second that I know many countries face is emission projections, and developing robust emission projections and strengthening the institutional framework surrounding them is a high priority and the more challenging issue. Additionally, we are committed to enhance national and regional capacities for assess vulnerability and impact to better understand the potential consequence of climate change. And also we face a data collection complexity, strengthening data collection for the LULUCF sector is the most challenging here in Peru. Within the national inventory presents a unique challenge. The complexity for monitoring land use change within our vast Amazon region require innovative solutions. There are some transitions that we don't assess, or we cannot assess in an adequate manner. Despite this challenge, we are confident that by adopting a strategic and collaborative approach, we can overcome these hurdles and try on do our best effort to deliver high quality BTR reports that accurately reflect our climate action efforts. And I think it's also a big issue because we are trying also to update our NDC for the next year. And I think it's also challenging, but also in a good time for do that. Thank you.
So thank you very much already to both of you for your elaborate answers and for being so open and for sharing your knowledge and experience with us. In the chat, we already have some questions. However, they are mainly on the BTR tool itself. I would therefore like to first invite the audience if you have some questions for Cheryl or for Berioska on their comments and remarks. So if there are some questions, feel free to unmute you and ask directly. If this is not the case, then maybe there will come some more in some minutes when you have some time to think about what just have been told. So maybe then we can just start with the questions in the chat, and I think we can just go chronologically. So the first one would be from Britta Horstmann, who is asking, how does this tool relate to the CGE guidance material and is adaptation covered by the tool? I would invite either Christina or Lorenz to come forward.
Yes, so I would say that the tool is not directly related to the CGE materials, but it is complementary in that sense that it, of course, addresses the BTRs and addresses the requirements of the enhanced transparency framework. Yeah, and in terms of adaptation, maybe Lorenz, maybe you want to add on that.
Thank you. Yes, just to add to what Christina said, so I would also see it like this. The two tools or what is available is complementary, because what the CG provides is more guidance material, background material, which helps party representative prepare information. And what they have on adaptation, there is CG material. It's the I just looked it up in the meantime. So let me see. There's a adaptation material for ETF reporting. So that's basically, it's like a guidance document that provides practical suggestions what to report on the various subsections on adaptation. So that's a typical guiding material. There's also the CGE, I think it's called Technical Handbook. And there's something from the CGE which is called a toolbox, but it's actually also like a collection of guidance material. And it's that toolbox related to institutional arrangements, which contains various things. But I would say typically CGE material provides guidance when drafting and when setting up your arrangements, while what was presented by Christina is a tool for planning the reporting process.
Yes, and I can briefly show if there's interest on what the tool actually asks on adaptation. So again, the logic that the tool asks about what is available in the country and then translates this into a time period considering what is available, what it would take to prepare the chapter. So the tool is it has more detailed question on the chapters that are mandatory, the tracking progress and the greenhouse gas inventory. But here, for example, the questions relate to the previous experience on adaptation reporting. So if the country has submitted an adaptation communication before, or if it has a national adaptation plan, and then the tool also gives suggestions on what can be done. And this is the final question is, of course, also very important for building on what has been previously done. In many countries, often it is the case that there's external support for preparing a specific document or for accompanying a process, and then that person leaves the public service, or from the beginning it was only a temporary person. So this is a question where one needs to be honest. If the capacity has been lost, then of course the time for preparing a chapter will be longer because you have to rebuild the capacity. And then, as in the other chapters, there are some hints what is important, recommended actions, and here's some more tools. So this is what the BTR tools offers.
Hoping that this adequately answers the questions, I would move on to the next one by Yoshi Gopal. So after reporting, review FMCP is another key element of ETF to improve countries' reporting capacity over time. I'm wondering whether there's a plan to come with a similar guidance and roadmap tool for BTR review and FMCP. Yes, Lorenz, please.
Thank you. I'm happy to comment on it. Of course, I cannot say now whether, for example, PATPA or other organizations have any plan in this regard, but my personal comment would be it will be helpful for parties to have some guidance when preparing for the review and for the FMCP, but it would not really, it doesn't need to be an elaborate tool. Maybe also just some the possibility to share experiences that, for example, those parties that were already subject to review, they just write down what helped them prepare, what kind of questions they got. So I think some low-key guidance and sharing of experience would help, both for the review and also for the FMCP. FMCP, there's the word facilitative in it and consideration. So it's everybody prepares as good as they can, but also it's not really necessary to set up a whole process to prepare for these events. Thank you.
I think Oscar also wants to add on.
Sure, yeah, thanks. Yeah, just to react to that. So the tool does not include as such those elements, although this is something that was considered in the development of the tool, that it is also part of the process of the reporting process to consider also the time dedicated to the review process under the Paris Agreement. I would also tend to agree with Lorenz that this does not need to be a topic for a new tool on how to get ready for the facilitative multilateral consideration of progress or for the review, but definitely, I mean, what we did in PATPA for the reporting exercise under the UNFCCC, the biennial update report, we developed also some guidance documents on how to get ready for developing countries for these review processes. For the biennial update reports, now for the biennial transparency reports that are due from this year on, the things get a bit more complicated for developing countries, and we will definitely consider there, based on our experience, how to incorporate some recommendations eventually in a future publication or paper. Thank you.
Very much. I would move on to the next question from Jonas Pollick. Is loss and damage maybe as a sub-indicator of adaptation included in a tool, or is there any guidance on how loss and damage is or could be included in the BTRs in the standardized format? Yes, Lorenz, please.
Thank you. I'm happy to come in again and once again refer to the work of the CGE. So the CGE material on adaptation, which I just mentioned, it covers all those topics which are listed in the MPG, so it's in the guidelines for BTR reporting. And under adaptation, there's also a subtopic listed, which is loss and damage. And that's just the way it was agreed in Article 13 and also then in the negotiations, we have adaptation, and then as part of it, we have information on loss and damage. And now in the CGE, material. So it's the CG training material on climate change impacts and adaptation. There is also a chapter with background information and suggestions on how to report on loss and damage in your BTR. Maybe a general comment, especially when it's about adaptation, climate change impacts, and also loss and damage. That's very country specific. So I would say it doesn't really need to be the goal to have standardized reporting. Your national circumstances are very different. Every party reports what they think is important and is in line with the guidelines. So I think the CGE material is very good. And then it's up to the party which priorities they set and what they wish to include in the BTR. Thank you.
Over to you, Cheryl.
Hi, yes, just wanted to also comment and react to the question on loss and damage. And I do agree with the comments from Lawrence in terms of it being country specific. For many of us, loss and damage is still yet to be completely defined in terms of what exactly is defined as loss and damage. And for small and developing states in particular, we would prefer to have them as two separate in terms of adaptation, talking about building resilience and loss and damage in two separate different aspects. For St. Kitts and Nevis, what the approach would be in the first instance is to develop a loss and damage strategy to at least set that tone in terms of what the mindset is, what is considered as loss and damage, and then begin that next step to see how it can be incorporated into the relevant reports. But I just want to echo the similar comments from Lawrence in terms of the loss and damage and adaptation resilience is quite national in terms of country specific. And so we would look to see exactly how it can be incorporated in the relevant elements, but to be clear that there are certain resources that will never be regained irrespective of whatever adaptation measures are taken in place versus what the level of resilience can be built to avoid and minimize any different impacts on climate change as it's related to. So I just wanted to just echo similar comments based on what Lawrence would have said. Thanks.
For both of you. The next question would be from Jonathan Hassel, which is, how do you plan to further develop this tool? Are you in exchange with the WIM XCOM task by the GST to develop voluntary guidelines, enhancing the collection and management of data and information to inform the preparation of biennial transparency reports?
I think this is a question for PATPA.
Yes, Oscar, please.
Yeah, I wanted to react to that. So we are not in exchange with them directly. And we are also not necessarily working on the development of voluntary guidelines. But I mean, this goes a bit into the direction of yesterday's webinar, where we presented as well our good practice study for the preparation of greenhouse gas inventories in the waste sector, where, I mean, this study provides recommendations to countries on how to enhance the collection and how to deal with data gaps in a specific sector, in the waste sector. There are other organizations that have developed also guidance for other sectors as well. But so far, it is not something within our scope to develop additional voluntary guidelines as tasked by the Global Stocktake. And to my knowledge, I mean, I haven't been in touch with them, and to my knowledge, there is also no other organization working on the field of transparency working on this regard. I don't know, Lawrence, whether you have any more insights from the negotiations context.
Thank you. Just to add, as always, of course, the CGE is involved. So colleagues who work on reporting basically on all aspects, they are also in touch with the colleagues from the Warsaw International Mechanism Executive Committee. So these colleagues are in touch, and I think it's also more at that level. So PATPA and other organizations, they provide more like the technical tools and some specific guidance, while it's up to those subsidiary bodies to really work on like new guidelines at a higher level. That would be my comment here.
And I think this is the last question from the chat before we would have one more for Cheryl and Berioska. So this it's something between a comment and a question, I would say. So it's still the exact challenges of this tool are not clear from the practices, but it seems there are many benefits that help countries to be in a track to plan for the preparation of the BTR. To what extent this tool can complement the other efforts from CGE, ECAT, and CBIT program and others? Is there any type of coordination and collaboration? Yes, please.
I can directly react to that one. So first of all, the tool that was developed jointly with the FAO, it's a planning tool. So it's not like a tool that will support countries to draft a chapter or any chapter of the BTR. So this, I think this became clear. So it should provide guidance to countries to adequately plan enough time and resources to finalize a BTR ideally on time. And this is the practice that we've heard from Peru and from the MRV Caribbean Hub. That's the main aim. There are other organizations or bodies such as the CG or ICAT or the CBAT program and others that have also developed additional tools and guidance documents and publications. We do coordinate and cooperate with many of them. So we try as much to avoid duplications. But again, in this case, so I think that the main benefits from this tool, and that might be also a reaction to the comment, is that the tool is mainly, or it was mainly developed to support countries in the planning process for the preparation of the BTR, rather than on providing any specific technical guidance for that. The tool provides information on additional resources on where to look for information on specific chapters of the BTR, but that's not the aim of the tool. Christina, I see also you want to add something to that.
Yeah, I wanted to add something that I learned in this webinar, or what maybe could come, that synergies arise also from the different support that is available for countries, no? Because Berioska, I understood she told that the BTR roadmap tool was helpful to then prepare a project proposal for getting additional support under CBIT, but I'm not really sure. So it is also, I would say, good if the country has an overview of the support it is receiving and is strategic about it, how to best combine it.
Thank you for answering the question. And then I would have one more question for Cheryl and for Berioska, which would be Christina in the beginning showed us that you can try out some different scenarios in the tool. And I would like to know if you've tried some different scenarios and if you're planning to use the tool in the future. But of course, this will be a bit more in the long-term future, so by 2026. Thank you.
Okay, I can start. I will be very short. Yes, there's intent to, as indicated in one of the interventions, we have already re-engaged discussions with PATPA for a technical workshop, and based on the outputs that would have taken place last year at the annual meeting and the subsequent trainings that would have taken place at Latin American Climate Week in Panama last year, we recognized that, and also looking at the fact that the relevant reporting processes, we have our NDCs to be updated NDCs to be submitted in 2025. The BTRs, those who are in a party to do so, position to do so, submit by 2024. There's really synergies that are required, and based on the information that was presented from last year's technical workshop, we see added value in re-engaging with the Caribbean member states to basically resensitize on this particular tool, and also coming back to a point that was raised especially for small and developing states within the Caribbean territories. We always have that challenge of brain drain, where the person who may have been exposed last at the annual meeting may not actually be the person who will be exposed in the upcoming workshop. So we do see the value in resensitizing, re-engaging, continuing that level of training, awareness, and technical support. So, but based on what we would have presented, or what would have presented to us at that last meeting, there's a very strong intent to re-engage, to resensitize, and to actually use the BTR roadmap tool as a starting point, recognizing that it can bring in all the relevant different elements for them to go back to their respective countries to see where the needs are, what the gaps are, and what recommendations will be required to advance the work moving forward.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. We plan to utilize the BTR planning tool further because the tool has proved to be an invaluable resource for streamlining our BTR development process. And regarding the scenarios function of the tool, we haven't had the opportunity to explore the scenarios functionally yet. However, based on the tool's overall effectiveness, we are very interested in explore the scenarios function more. In fact, right now we plan also to submit a communication for adaptation, and we can, with a tool, we can split the different chapters for ones for the national communication, some for the BTR, and then for the national communication. And we believe the scenario planning could be a valuable exercise to do, and we are eager to learn more about the tool, the planning process, and also we want to join Cheryl in the Latin American Climate Week. Maybe we can share some more experience there. Thank you very much.
All right, then thanks for your answers. If there are no more questions from the audience, which I think is not the case, then I would like to invite Oscar once again to the floor to share some key take-home messages. There's one more question coming in, I think. How the technical support can be provided to apply this tool. Jerry and his colleagues asked for more rounds of training. Yes, please, Oscar.
Yeah, I can react quickly to that. So we have provided support to different countries in various formats. So we have assessed countries to use the tool either virtually or in-person trainings. Depending on the needs of the country. So I would suggest that countries and people interested in knowing how the tool works, download it. It's somehow self-explanatory, so one can go through the sections of the tool and make a first judgment of the results based on the information that is available at the country level, especially people that are working on the BTR preparation. They should be able to answer the questions independently. What we have done, what works quite well, is also to provide some support and provide the opportunity to discuss on the results with the countries. And this is something that works virtually quite well and that we have done with several countries already. So that could be an option. And for that, how to get this support, I would suggest that this is potentially something for a bilateral follow-up. Feel free to reach out to us at the end of today's webinar. We will again provide you the information on how to reach us at the Secretariat of the PATPA. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, if there are no more questions coming in, I would give the word again to Oscar to provide us with some concluding remarks to this session.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you very much, Berioska and Cheryl, for sharing your experiences and knowledge with us, with everyone here in the call. Before closing, I would like to quickly wrap up and share some key take-home messages for preparing a BTR based on our perspective and experience here at PATPA. There are 4 main takeaway messages that I would like to share. Firstly, to prioritize. It might happen that you as country representatives might not be able to cover all the aspects of a BTR according to the expectations that you had at the beginning. And this is why we encourage countries to focus for the submission of the first BTRs on the mandatory elements of this report, and time provided also try to incorporate some other non-mandatory elements, but keeping in mind that what is really relevant is to keep the deadline by the end of the year and to focus if you are short of resources or expertise on the mandatory elements. And remember, it does not need to be a perfect BTR. So all countries, both developed and developing countries, are facing this challenge for the first time. There are obviously more people experience with reporting from industrialized nations, but even them, they are also in a learning process, and this is the beginning of a common journey. So don't be afraid not to make the perfect BTR this time, but rather focus on prioritizing resources. Secondly, stay adaptive. Most likely there will be some unexpected challenges arising throughout the year, or already for the countries that have started already, they are probably familiar with this, what I'm saying here. And our encouragement would be to all countries to remain flexible and try to adapt quickly to new circumstances and situations. Thirdly, and this is very important based on our experience and countries' experience from the past, you will need time for the political approval process for the biennial transparency report. So don't think that finalizing drafting the BTR by mid-December will allow the ministerial representatives to approve the document on time by the 31st of December. So there is still sufficient time until the submission deadline, roughly 9 months left. So we would suggest, as we all know, that political processes take long, that you start conversations early, that you make the persons responsible for the approval process aware of the situation, so they are not, that you don't run out of time, and that people are well aware, well in advance about this requirement. And fourthly, and most importantly, I mentioned it before, keep the deadline of end of December this year, 2024, in mind, and consider further improvement of BTRs over time. It is critical under the Paris Agreement that the December 2024 deadline is kept. And as I mentioned before as well, countries, both developed and developing ones, are making big efforts to reach this mark, and will need at some point eventually to make some concessions and think about this enhancement, not for this submission, but over subsequent submissions. Those would be my 4 key takeaway messages. And with this, I would like to thank everyone for participating today at our webinar, and also in general to our webinar series. And I hope that we were able to provide you with some valuable and practical content, inform you about some hopefully useful knowledge products that we have published recently and tools. And we will keep you informed as well about our future activities, both virtual and in person. And please do not hesitate to reach out to us should you have any requests, suggestions, or recommendations. Thank you very much, and over to you, Tim.
Thank you very much, Oscar. There's actually one last question in the chat, which just came in right now, which is there any capacity building arrangements are made to facilitate the use of this tool as to demonstrate its use to the developing countries for better understanding and to catch the upcoming BTR this year in a proper way? Oscar, do you want to react to it?
As I mentioned before, I think that If you have interest in the tool and you're still in the preparatory phase of the PTR, feel free to reach out to us, and we can have some follow-up discussions and see how we can support additional countries in the use of the tool, and also especially in the planning of the first PTR. Thank you.
Right. Then if there are no more questions or remarks left, I would also like to close the session and thank you all for your participation. And particularly a big thank you to Cheryl and to Ryoska for sharing their experiences and knowledge and taking the time to join us today. And also to Lawrence and Christina, who have accompanied us throughout our webinar series. And the contributions of all of you have been very valuable to us. And so thanks a lot. And please stay in touch. We'll inform you about upcoming events, and the recording of this webinar will be available online by the end of the day. You can find it on our website and on our YouTube channel. And yes, enjoy your Wednesday and hopefully see you soon. Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you very much. Have a good day all.
Thank
Goodbye,
you very much.
everyone.
Bye bye.
Thank you so much for the talkative.